This is a brief video on the Timberline estimating program. I've already launched the application and I'm sitting in a blank spreadsheet. I'm going to show you two of the ways of taking items out of the database and bringing them to the estimate. Those two ways are called quick takeoff and assembly takeoff. I'll start with the quick takeoff. I simply come up over here and I click on takeoff, quick takeoff. It opens up to my database. This particular database is a general contractor's database and organized in the 16 division format. So all I need to do is come in here and open up the group concrete. It shows me the different phases of concrete. Let's say, for example, I'm going to do some formwork. I open up formwork and here's all my different items for formwork. Say I'm just going to form you can see all the different items that I have in the formwork. Say I'm just going to form something from the top, make it nice and easy. Form a spot footing. I just take the item that I want and I drop it into the spreadsheet. Notice it places it in the spreadsheet in the hierarchy of the group, the phase, and then the item. Once I quantify this item, say there's 125 of lineal feet, it becomes part of the estimate. And notice what it's also done. It went out and calculated all of my costs for me as it relates to the labor. So there's my productivity. Here's how much I'm paying my labor. Here's my cost, here's how many hours of labor I'm ordering for this particular task, and here's my labor amount. Just sitting right here, I have so much capability. I'm just going to show you a few things. Say, for example, I look here and say, well, I'm not paying him $16 an hour, I'm paying him $20. Notice what it'll do in both directions. It'll go out and calculate the appropriate amounts. Say, for example, I say, no, it's really going to take him more like 0.10 hours per lineal foot. It goes out and calculates the other way. So what I'm trying to point out is it will always be mathematically correct for you. Say, for example, you even say, I only have 10 hours and I can get that done in. Watch what happens. It goes back the other way and it calculates my productivity based on my new required order quantity. A lot of capability. This is just the labor category. You can apply these same type of requirements or conditions in all the other categories of material, equipment, subcontract, and other. That's quick takeoff. I'll just drag a few more in here and drop them in. Maybe that's enough form work, and see I need some grouting, for example. What I'm trying to point out is it will always organize by group, phase, and item. That's the beauty of an intelligent database. And say I need 500 of these and 25 feet of that and so forth. I need 6 of those. That's one way of doing takeoff in the program. I'm going to close this window here, and now I'm going to go to assembly takeoff. And that's takeoff, assembly takeoff. Now a second window opens up, and this is my assembly takeoff window. We've organized them into groups, and I'm going to go to concrete again, and these are all the different types of scope of work, so to speak, that I can do with my given assemblies. So I'm just going to do something simple like slab on grade. You see there's a bunch of them here, so I'm just going to pick slab on grade, and watch what happens down here and over here when I pick this assembly. The screen changes and it places all the items that I say that I am going to need in order to do a slab on grade. So over here are called my variables. Essentially what these are all the questions that need to be answered in order to calculate all my quantities for my slab on grade. You'll also notice here it says new pass. So what happens is as I start going through and entering dimensions, say the slab is 50 feet long and it's 25 feet wide. Is there a color? No. Depth of the slab, say it's 1 foot deep. Keep it simple. Is there any waste associated to it? If there's a turn down beam, I say yes, and notice what happens. It opens up and gives me more information. So if yes, then more information. If no, then on to the next series of questions. Thicken area, yes. I'll just say no here, just to kind of show you what's happening. And I'll go down to concrete strength. Notice also it pre-filled with the 3000. Also over here my help window tells me my choices are between 2500 and 8000. So any number I place in there between that, it will pick the appropriate concrete strength. Say for example I'm not paying attention and I type in 9000 or 9100. Notice what happens. I get an error message that's telling me, hey, hang on a second. What you entered is outside of the range. So I say, oh, okay. and notice it puts it back to the default. So the way to look at these questions, these variables, is not just like a way to guide you through the system, but also a checklist, and also keeping track of how you're responding to the questions. The same way you use yes and no, we can do things like guide you along with tables and so forth. What type of a slab is this? It's a fill slab. Form is required. I'll say no. I just start going through. Half a foot of sand, probably more like any blockouts and so forth. So I just go through and answer all the questions about my slab. You see there's a different series of questions all related to how I select these quantities. So I'll just say there's some saw cutting, and it's I need 200 feet of it, and I need 3 joints, and so forth all the way through. You get the idea on how these assemblies work, these variables. So now I'm going to click right here. Based on how I've answered these questions up above, it's going to calculate my quantities down below. If you look down here, it tells me how many square feet, what my cost is, and what my cost is per square foot based on how I've answered these questions. Notice it also generated a pass for me. I'm going to say OK to this and close the window, and it's taken and returned all of my items into my spreadsheet according to their group, phase, and item. But let's say, for example, you want to take a look at it the way you took it off, which was in that assembly. So I'm just going to come down here to the bottom of the screen and pick assembly. Same estimate, just sorting it in a different order. I click here. There's the assembly I just took off, and this says unassigned because these are the ones I just used in quick takeoff. Here's my items that I used in that last takeoff. So say I'm looking here and I say, you know what, it's really not those dimensions, it's a different set of dimensions. I can quickly go in, because it's a database driven application with an intelligent assembly. I can say I want to review that assembly. It opens it up, and this is typically how our assemblies will start, with all the defaults and other boxes turned off. But notice what happens when I click on this pass one. It populates the variables with the dimensions that I entered on this pass. So I'll just come over here and say, no, the slab is really 65 feet and it's really 35 feet. And that's important because all those other materials that are being calculated on these two dimensions will automatically get updated in my takeoff. So I'm just going to click on this button over here, which is replace, and notice my quantities as well as what happens over here in my audit trail when I click here. It updates my quantities according to the new dimensions. It records what's going on in terms of the variable pane and calculates my new quantities. There's my new square footage, my new cost, my new unit cost based on this assembly and how I answered these questions. Click OK, close, and I'm back at my spreadsheet. Same information, just sorting it in a different way. That being said, I can also sort by a location. Say I want to sort by a building, or say I want to sort by a particular bid item. Pretty much any way you would like to see your estimate, you're able to do it. I'm back here at my spreadsheet phase item, and that's our brief look at the Timberline estimating program.